Hello, welcome to another TeamSense Tuesday webinar. My name is Caroline Rizzo, and I'm joined today by Alison Teegarden and Justin Sears. And we'll be talking about how to use TeamSense surveys to improve employee satisfaction. Before we jump in and introduce Alison and Justin, let's cover a few housekeeping items as always. So we really do encourage questions throughout the webinar. We'll probably get to them towards the end of the webinar, but if you have questions that pop up, feel free to ask them in that Q&A panel at the bottom of your screen. Also, as you may have noticed, we are recording this webinar. We will be sending out the recording towards the end of the day via a YouTube link to all the registrants of today's webinar. So if you have to hop off earlier, you want to come back to the content later, that's going to be a really great way to rewatch this webinar. Okay, well, let's go ahead and jump in. I'd love for Justin and Alison to go ahead and introduce themselves. Welcome, guys.
Thanks, Caroline. Really appreciate it. So my name is Alison Teegarden. If I haven't had the privilege of meeting you as an existing customer or in your conversations with TeamSense so far, I am one of the co-founders of TeamSense and currently the COO. And Justin, you want to go ahead and
I run
intro?
marketing, and I'm relative to you, Alison. I'm a newcomer. Very
Oh,
excited.
you're an old hat at this point.
Well, it's
Justin's.
great to be here with you, and really excited about today's topic, and lots to share with the audience on this.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I am also really excited about today's topic. It's one of the things that's interesting about TeamSense is so often we're really focused on, attendance and absenteeism. And it's one of the unique things we do, right? Is reducing absenteeism through bringing transparency, accountability, and automation to the attendance management process. But the really cool thing about TeamSense, I think, is what you can do after you have sort of laid that foundation through attendance management. And so what we're going to be talking about today is leveraging that digital connection that you've created through this attendance process to be able to actually drive engagement and employee satisfaction. For those of you who maybe are less familiar with TeamSense, one of the things that we do obviously is automate the attendance management process. Employees text into TeamSense. When they do, they actually are able to see things like their points balance. They can make the decision to call off. And then we automate all of the sort of data management on the back end, automatically notifying supervisors and pushing data into your time and attendance system. And so the really amazing thing about this process is by bringing transparency and accountability into this process, we can actually reduce absenteeism. And we see that at different customers that we've worked with. However, what's really unique about this is that through that process of engaging with the employee for attendance, we actually create this digital connection to the employee through their mobile phone. And what we get to do is work with our customers to see, like, how can we leverage that digital connection to drive engagement? And so today we're going to talk about ways to actually create not just absence forms in TeamSense, but these different custom forms and surveys that we'll build in partnership with our customers to accomplish their objectives around employee engagement. So we're going to talk about three different kinds of categories of use cases. So the first is around using TeamSense surveys to actually deliver engagement or pulse surveys. A lot of times, we talk to customers and it's really difficult to measure engagement when you've got 14 shifts and 9 different languages spoken on the floor. So how do you do that effectively? So we'll talk about that. We're also going to talk about number 2, TeamSense surveys for anonymous feedback and suggestions. You can actually set up a TeamSense form as kind of a suggestion box, and we've seen customers do that, and it's a really cool way to invite that ad hoc feedback from employees. And then number 3, we're going to talk about using TeamSense surveys for employee engagement activities. So this is like contests or event signups, gathering information about employee preferences. And so we'll share some examples of that as well. So let's start by diving into number 1, TeamSense surveys for engagement and pulse surveys. So, one of the things that I mentioned earlier is that a lot of times it's really challenging with this particular workforce to measure engagement. When we are working with our customers, Justin, you've heard so many say like how difficult it is, right, to measure engagement. It's often like people out there with a clipboard, or there's a kiosk in the break room and you have this like 50-person line during lunch, everybody trying to fill this out. Or there's a lot of organizations that just don't measure it at all, because it's so difficult. And so with TeamSense, one of the really cool things is we can build an engagement or a pulse survey for you in TeamSense. You can choose whether or not you want to keep it anonymous. You can send surveys on a scheduled basis. So especially if it's a pulse survey and I want to send it, every first Wednesday or something like that, you can set that up. Or you can send it ad hoc, where you go into TeamSense and send it to a select group of employees. We can automate reminders for folks that haven't filled it out yet. Say, if you haven't filled it out in the first day, send the employee a reminder to fill it out. And then all of the data can be visualized in TeamSense or exported if you want to look at the analysis elsewhere. So really a way to leverage this channel, right, Justin, for employees to actually be able to provide their feedback and level of engagement.
And Alison, the thing I've heard talking with customers is what this really does is decouples the location and time that you gather information from customers. So think about that clipboard example you gave. You have to be in a place with something face to face to people to gather that information. And that really limits both the employees' ability to think about it, to come back when they want to. When everybody has a device in their pocket and you push the survey out, they don't need to answer right away. They might think about it. Even so, we see huge improvement in response rate with TeamSense over more traditional ways of gathering information. I think we heard that one of our customers had an employee satisfaction survey that they were sending out every year, and they were getting about an 8% response rate. And then they did it on TeamSense and they went up to north of 80% because it just made it easier for people to respond and provide that structured information.
Totally. It's a completely different experience from an employee's perspective, and really meets them where they are. So starting off that survey on a good foundation. So I'm actually going to share what this looks like a little bit in the product itself, because I think it kind of gives a really good sense of what we're looking at here. So this is actually an administrator's view of the product, and we're specifically in the forms tab and looking at a pulse survey. This is obviously a demo environment, so these aren't real pulse survey responses that we're looking at here. But what you would see if we were to set up a survey in TeamSense is you see all these analytics, right? So how many surveys have been sent? What's the typical completion time for a survey? When we're looking at a pulse survey like this one, you're wanting something really quick, really fast. A lot of our customers who want to do a pulse survey focus on, 2 to 3 questions sent out at a regular cadence. So it's really, it's taking a pulse. It's really just a quick check-in rather than a full-blown engagement survey for this purpose. Response rate, and then looking at sort of the questions, what are you seeing across these different areas? And so being able to really quickly at a glance see like, wow, it's awesome. We have 58% people that are very happy, but we also have 16% of folks that are very unhappy at work. And so trying to understand, okay, what's driving that? And then free form responses, are going to show up down here as well. We see more flexible shifts, more frequent breaks is something that's requested here. And so all of that would be visualized directly within TeamSense. And like I said, if you choose to export it, you can do that as well. The other thing I mentioned earlier is the ability to set up schedules for these. So particularly for a pulse survey, it's a really good opportunity to use the scheduling functionality because it's something that you want to be sent out on a regular cadence. And so with the schedules, you can see, here's a schedule set up for first shift, sent out monthly on the first Monday of the month at 9:30 a.m. And the really amazing thing about this is, we talked about the challenge of timing. You've got 14 shifts. You got to get to all of them. But we could set up a separate schedule for each different shift, and I could choose, the folks just in that shift to get this schedule. So if I had, a graveyard shift and I wanted to get this sent out at 1 a.m, I could absolutely do that. And I would have that level of precision over who received it at what time. And so again, enabling organizations to meet employees where they are at is what this is all about. And the other thing I mentioned as well is the ability to automate reminders. So right now this is set up so that if an employee doesn't answer within 1 day from the time they received the survey, they will get an automated reminder that says, hey, don't forget, you've got this survey here, please fill it out. And you can add multiple if you would like to do so. But that's another way we're improving response rates, really making sure that you're capturing as much of the employee population sentiment as possible.
And let me jump in and remind folks, I know when we show demos, lots of questions will come up. If you have questions, we have some time at the end for Q&A. So just pop them into the Q&A in the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to those at the end.
Amazing. Thank you for the reminder, Justin. Yes, please drop questions into the Q&A. We would love to hear your questions. So this is an example of a pulse survey, and something that our team can work to build with you, and we would love to do so. So if this is something that you struggle with, please reach out to our team. If you're a current customer, we would love to work with you on creating this.
And Alison, I know this is, you showed a general pulse survey. What are some other sort of ad hoc type surveys that people do in this general category? What are some things you've seen?
Totally. If you hang on to that for a second, Justin, we're actually gonna get to that in a few minutes, because there's some really fun examples of ways in which folks have used TeamSense surveys to really engage with and connect with employees. So this is really just the first category, engagement and pulse surveys. And Justin, you brought up this example earlier of this customer that you're exactly right. They had really struggled to get responses to their annual engagement survey from hourly employees, sitting at around an 8% response rate. And for them, they actually chose to go a slightly different route than what I've just shared. With this, we're building a survey within TeamSense. We're managing all of those responses within TeamSense. What they chose to do was interesting. So they already were working with an engagement vendor. So obviously lots of vendors out there, Gallup, Qualtrics, Culture Amp. And what they did was they had their vendor create a link to their engagement survey that could be shared generally, and they use the TeamSense Communicate feature to send that out to all of their employees. And just that enabled them to drive responses from 8% to over 80%. They actually became the leading department for response rate that year because of the distribution through TeamSense. And so, for any of you that are listening in and say, oh, this is really cool, but I already work with an existing engagement survey vendor, you can still leverage the TeamSense digital connection that you've built with your employees to improve your response rates with that vendor.
And Alison, I remember our friend Tim at the AZEK company, they had built an engagement survey that they were very proud of, and it was working really well, but they were only able to do it once a year. And so they didn't implement that survey in TeamSense, but they used these pulse surveys just to check in. So if they got the survey results at the end of the year and they built plans on that, well, they didn't have to wait another year to find out how they were doing. When that big survey went out, they could check on every couple months or every quarter.
Yes. Yeah, exactly right, Justin. And the one thing that I will add here this isn't related to TeamSense as a product, but more just a best practice in general. If you as an organization choose to send out regular pulse surveys or an engagement survey, the most important thing is to demonstrate follow-up action in the wake of those surveys. I would actually go as far as to say, if you're not going to action things that come back from the surveys, it would be better to never send them at all. Because what we observe working with our partners is those that really see success in driving and improving employee engagement are those where employees within, a fairly short span of time from the time that they filled out the survey see response, see a recognition that, okay, we saw your feedback and here's the things that we're doing to action it. So that's my encouragement to any of you who are working with either TeamSense or other vendors to send out pulse or engagement surveys, is to really be thoughtful about, what are some of the quickest wins that we can show that we're on this journey to respond to feedback. So that was number one. We talked about there being 3 different use cases. The first was engagement and pulse surveys. The second use case we wanted to talk about today was anonymous feedback and suggestions. So one of the most challenging things to gather from employees is ad hoc feedback. And we see, for example, employees who have an idea or a proposal and have no way to share that with anybody that could actually action it. And so a lot of times these ideas sit dormant. In other cases, we see, maybe there's a concern or somebody really wants to anonymously speak up about something. In some cases, this can be really difficult to provide a channel that's easily accessible to do that. And so TeamSense has the ability to do that. What we just saw was with engagement and pulse surveys was the organization pushing surveys out. What we're going to see here is the employee actually taking the initiative to go open a survey and fill it out. And so with this kind of a survey, what we typically set up with customers is a couple different things. So one is we'll set up a text keyword. So for those of you who use TeamSense for absence management, you know that employees text into TeamSense to initiate a call off. We would do the same thing for this. So for example, here we see that the organization has set up the suggestion as sort of the text keyword to trigger this particular survey, and in response, they get a link to a suggestion form. And so we would customize that with the organization. We also can make sure that this is, this would be added to your portal screen for your employees. So for those of you leveraging the TeamSense portal to share important information with your employees, this form would be added there so that they can view it and access it there as well. Similarly to what we saw with the engagement and pulse surveys, you can view the responses in TeamSense. You can choose whether or not to make it anonymous. It's really up to you how you want to leverage this, but it's a really cool way to get feedback from employees or suggestions, ideas, concerns. Here we see somebody's asking for more microwaves in the break room. Those are the kinds of things that often get buried in the sort of day-to-day operations, but can really improve employee satisfaction if an employee knew, I had an idea, I submitted it, the organization acted upon it. It's a really cool demonstration of commitment to employees.
And Alison, this might be a good place to just point out that the traditional ways of gathering these suggestions might be a suggestion box or something like that. Somebody has to take all those cards or pieces of paper and decipher the language. Maybe the handwriting's not the best. They have to
totally.
transfer. So if you're talking about a big site and there's multiple suggestion boxes and they could be entered at any time, somebody's got to keep an eye on that. And then, like you mentioned, don't ask for suggestions if you're not going to respond to them. If someone drops something in a box, they're wondering in the back of their mind, is anybody ever going to look at that? And there's no immediate feedback. There's not even, acknowledgement that that suggestion's been received necessarily.
Absolutely. You're exactly right, Justin. And so, being able to digitize that process can make the organization so much more effective in responding to these requests. And so it's something that is a little thing, but again, inviting employees to really share their ideas. If you can demonstrate your willingness to act on them, it can be an enormous driver of employee satisfaction. I see we have one question in the chat from Thomas. Thank you so much. We'll circle back to this in a few minutes. I will go ahead and answer that question. It's a great question. Again, folks, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A section. So let's talk a little bit about this third use case, TeamSense surveys for employee engagement activities. And this is where things start to get really fun. One of the things that is just the most rewarding about getting to work with all of our customers is the creativity that we see from all these different organizations across North America, and how they really are dedicated to figuring out new ways to engage employees. And it's super fun to get to see that creativity in action. And this is really where it comes alive. So, you know, with the ability to create surveys in TeamSense and that digital connection, it has made it so much easier for our customers to be able to connect with employees in a really quick and easy way. And that means that we can lower the barriers for engagement on all sorts of different activities. And so, you know, some of the examples of use cases for this is we see customers use TeamSense surveys to collect signups. So, you know, sign up for the family picnic, the summer family picnic, sign up here. Carpool signups. You know, engagement committee. If I need more folks who want to join the engagement committee, I can send out a TeamSense form and say, hey, you know, we're recruiting more people to join the engagement committee this year. Please sign up here. It's a really cool way to very quickly get the word out to everyone. And again, across those 14 shifts and in each employee's language of choice. And so democratizing that is really helpful. We've also seen different customers use this to gather employee preferences, which is really fun. So shift preferences, we actually shift preferences, we have one customer who is required by their CBA with their union to actually solicit shift preferences at least annually. And so they use TeamSense to do that. And it historically took one person a full week to try to go to every individual across the entire site, trying to solicit these preferences with a clipboard. And with TeamSense, they were able to do it in hours. And so the time saved for that team was enormous. But other like fun things with this, food truck preferences, you know, something that's come up. Music preferences, this one I love. We had a customer, you know, they play a Pandora station in their warehouse, and they asked employees, you know, vote on what's your Pandora station of choice. T-shirt sizes is something we've seen at several different organizations for, you know, providing any sort of clothing to employees, and, you know, please provide your sizing. This is a really helpful way to do that. But really fun way to help give employees a sense of control, a sense of over their environment, and the fact that their preferences are being accounted for, I think, is really important. I actually had one. Oh, go ahead, Justin.
Oh, I was just sorry. You give your example, and then I have another.
Yeah, I had one example that came to mind because we just recently had a customer do this. Is holidays, asking employees to vote on holidays. So this year, the 4th of July occurs on a Thursday. And so we had one of our customers want to know, would employees actually prefer to get Thursday off, or would they rather have Friday off and get a 3-day weekend? And so they used a TeamSense survey to send that out to employees and just ask them rather than trying to make a guess. And so using, again, like that that channel to let employees express a preference, huge driver of engagement when employees believe that their opinion is being heard.
And the example that I wanted to bring up is when we look at our platform and our product, we think about it a little bit in components. We have communicate, we have call off, but if you look at the first bullet in that carpool program, it really ties it all together because one of our customers was noticing absences or late arrivals around a particular period of time. How are they able to notice that? Because they're looking at their dashboard in TeamSense and seeing the trend analysis of when people are calling off, when people are getting in late. And so they started forming hypotheses. Why are people seem to be late on a particular day or a particular shift? And they could drill into it and reach out and talk to certain individuals. And then they could go back and communicate out, hey, would anyone be interested in a carpool? They get response back, and then they use the survey to figure out how to schedule. So all the pieces working together there, coming back to that idea of engagement. You can't engage with people if you don't know what the challenge is. And even if you know what the challenge is, if you don't have enough information, you don't know how to address it. And TeamSense really provides that 360 view of situations like that.
That's 100% right, Justin. Yeah, and that was a true customer example. This customer had their absence form set up so that one of the reason codes for an absence was, I think it was car trouble. And they just noticed, wow, we have a lot of employees with car trouble. And through that became, an initiative for carpooling. And it was a way to respond to the data that they were observing through TeamSense. Yeah, great example. Another example.
Oh
Go
yeah.
ahead, Justin.
Well, and since we're on cars, maybe this is the one you were going to give, but there's a story that we tell quite often. So maybe some folks on this call have heard it before, but somebody called off. It was right around shift start. Hey, I can't come in. I'm broken down. I'm on the side of the road. And the supervisor gets the automatic notification, instant notification, writes back, oh, where are you? And the employee in this case, gives that, oh, I'm off this road on the show, and I'm actually not even entirely off the road, so I'm in a little bit of danger. And the supervisor gets in their car, drives to this person, pushes the car off the side of the shoulder, gets her and brings her back to the warehouse. And talk about engagement. It's not just saying we take care of our people, it's getting in the car and driving and taking care of them and bringing them back
Yes.
in. And that employee, you better believe, shared what an important experience that was for her to be taken care of like that. And luckily, she mentioned that she'd been using TeamSense. Everyone was really excited about Team. Oh, that's an example of what TeamSense can do, connecting me to the people that I work with.
Yeah, that's a great story, Justin. And, it's one of those examples too of showing that soliciting information and feedback and ideas and, understanding what employees are going through, that is just the first step, right? What is really important is how the organization responds. And so, in this case, this supervisor, shout out to them because what they did, taking action to take care of that person, was the thing that saved the day. And that employee, it's true, went and told everybody on their shift what happened. They were like, this organization cares about me. And the amazing thing that this organization actually saw a meaningful drop in attrition following that incident. So again, just showing how the organization can take action to meet employees where they are. That's really what's moving the needle here. And TeamSense is, the vehicle, no pun intended, to create that connection. But it's really the actions of the organization and its people that is driving that engagement. Last example here for this particular use case is around submissions for contests or raffles or drawings. This one is actually really fun. We've seen, things like it's baseball season. We have four baseball tickets to, hometown game. To enter the drawing for these tickets, fill out this TeamSense survey. We've seen one of those games where, they have a big jar of like gumballs at the site, like guess the number of gumballs in this jar, and they do it by submitting a TeamSense survey. We've seen there was this one really fun one, an organization that had a contest for children's artwork. So like all the employees at the site with kids brought an example of their kids' artwork, and they put it all up on a wall, and then you voted in a TeamSense survey which of the artwork you really liked best, and then I think all of the kids got different awards of different kinds. It was really fun. But using, TeamSense as a way to gather that information really quickly and make it super accessible, it's just another fun example of ways that you can set up a TeamSense survey to drive that employee connectivity and engagement. So all in all, we've talked about 3 different major examples for ways to use TeamSense surveys to drive employee engagement and satisfaction. So we've talked about engagement and pulse surveys. We talked about suggestion boxes and anonymous feedback. And then we talked about how to use it for employee engagement activities. And I think, really the message overall is less that, you should go and start doing one of these things immediately. It's more that there's an enormous opportunity. I mean, this is like carte blanche in terms of what you could do with this kind of capability. And so, I mentioned that the thing that's always inspiring to me is the creativity of our customers. And so if you're an existing customer of TeamSense and you have an idea, our team would love to work with you on how do we bring that idea to fruition through a TeamSense survey. And so please reach out to your customer success team, customer support team, and we would love to do that with you. But this is something that is constantly amazing me with sort of the ways in which it can be used and how employees respond.
And Allison, but before we get to questions, because there's some great ones coming in, we've been talking about how we make it easier for employees to submit, but if you are an HR person listening in, think about how long it took you to create a survey that you maybe delivered. And I've already mentioned tabulating results and collating results. That's a lot of time. But when you can reduce the time, and I would say even reduce the effort that it takes to put a survey out there by, I don't know, 20, 30, 50%, then you can do 3 or 4 more as many surveys as you normally would. And we see that with some of our customers. They get used to it and they're like, oh, here's these things that I wanted to ask my employees that it was just too hard to ask that question or to get the information, so I didn't ask. And so you see this almost with some of our customers, sort of a snowball effect where they see how easy it is. They see that engagement signal they get back from their employees, and then all sorts of new ideas come up that they've sort of been shoving off to the side before.
Totally. It's fun to see those moments, those light bulb moments, like, oh, all these things I could do.
So we have a couple great questions. I'll just give a quick plug. Caroline and I will be on next week, and this is a fun one, kind of comparing what we're a little cheeky with the title here, but employee attendance app versus non-app. You might know that TeamSense is not an app. You don't need to download anything. And so some other similar solutions require an app. And this is a webinar to talk about the differences, both from engagement, usability, et cetera. So we're excited to be back here again this time next week to share that information. But I think it's a great time to get into questions now. Caroline, did you have any other transition stuff to mention?
That's it. Let's go ahead and get to the Q&A section. We have some good ones.
All right. Why don't I think, Allison, you're probably best to take this one. So this is from Thomas. Can a pulse survey be used to collect vacation requests or potentially an overtime sign-up sheet, allowing employees to make themselves available for certain days?
Yes, I love it. Thomas, thank you so much for asking this question. So yes, you could indeed like set up a TeamSense survey to be able to do this. And we actually have We have some customers who use TeamSense to do this today. Basically, what they will do is for vacation requests, some customers actually embed this in their call-off form, and they essentially ask up front. The first question is, are you making, a call-off for today, or are you requesting vacation for the future? And then depending on the way in which the employee answers, the survey will kind of go down a different branch. So that's one way to do it. The other way is to set it up as a different survey itself and have it as a PTO request form. And you can absolutely set that up within TeamSense. For shift preference, or excuse me, for a shift sign up, overtime shift sign up, we do have some we do have some customers who use that today and actually set it up as its own form. And so what we typically see is the employer sets up a form called like overtime sign up or open shift sign up or something like that with a keyword like overtime. And then what they will do is when they need overtime, they'll send out a communicate message in TeamSense to the select group of employees that they would want to engage with this. And they'll say, hey, we need overtime. Please sign up by replying overtime. And so the employee can reply overtime. They'll immediately get that link back to the sign up form, and they can go sign up in the overtime form. So there's some creative ways that you can sort of compare different TeamSense features together to make it really feel user friendly for the employee. But if you're an existing customer and it's something that you're interested in experimenting with, I definitely encourage you to reach out to the support team or your customer success manager, and they'd love to work with you on it.
Here's another one, Allison. Do the surveys work in Spanish?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we talked about how important it is for us to meet employees where they are, and language is a critical part of that. So TeamSense today works in almost 20 different languages, and this is a sneak peek, but we're about to be adding even more. And so, yes, it's really important that an employee can see this information in their native language, especially when you're looking at it to make really important decisions like pulse survey or an engagement survey. I'm trying to understand how employees are feeling. If they don't actually understand how to read the question, it's not an accurate piece of data. And so that's something that we absolutely offer.
And how does that process work? Does the HR team in this case, need to know Spanish to create the survey in Spanish? How do logistics work there?
Yeah, no, the team provides the survey to us in English, and then our team will manage the translations into any of our supported languages. In some cases, we work with customers who like to provide the translations themselves, or they want to review those, and then we'll partner with them to make sure that they can do that.
Great. Here's might be more general on what kind of response rates do you typically get?
Yeah, that's a great question. This one really varies by customer, I would say. And so I think the best response rates we see are when organizations demonstrate that they are actively listening to the responses and taking action. So that what we talked about earlier is really crucial to getting strong response rates. The best response rates we see up to 100%. But I'd say usually the best response rates are probably more in the 80%, which is incredibly good. Especially for this particular employee population. Typically the response rates, a lot of organizations are hovering around as 30%, less than half, which is really not a representative sample of their employee population.
Well, Allison, let's do one more, and then I think it's time to wrap and let people get back to their day.
Sure.
Is it possible to limit which employees can view or fill out a survey? I want to set up a survey so employees see it in the TeamSense portal, but I only want a certain shift to see it. Can I do that?
Great question. Yes, you can do that. So if you have a very targeted survey where you only want certain employees to be able to view it, you can work with our team to be able to scope exactly which employees within your organization should be able to see and fill out this survey, and we can set that up for you. So if you want to be very surgical, we can make that happen.
Fantastic. Well, I've really enjoyed here. I learned new examples. I hadn't heard some of those today, Allison. So thank you for sharing
Awesome.
your wisdom. Caroline, anything else for the audience before we wrap it up?
That's all we've got. Obviously, if you want to learn more about TeamSense and see it in action, really encourage you to book a demo with us. You can go to teamsense.com/demo. That pairs you with one of our experts and they can walk you through the product a little bit more in depth. But it's great that Allison kind of showed a little bit behind the scenes today, but we can show you even more.
And those demos are really the product can do lots of things. So the demos are great because you come to it with the thing that you want to see or learn about, and we can customize it pretty quickly to the challenges that you're looking at addressing in your organization. Well, thank you both. Thanks everybody for joining, and we'll see you back here next Tuesday.
Thank you all. Have a fantastic week.
Thanks, guys. See y'all soon. Take care.